On the topic of evaluation methods, what are your views about allotting grades for participation and for attendance?
That's an easy one for trades, our school, because the attendance is worked into part of all apprenticeship classes and all the entry-level pre-apprenticeship classes as well. Apprentices attend for 6 weeks at a stretch in most trades, and if they miss any more than 3 days within that 6 weeks, are penalized for that unless they have an excuse. So that's a pretty straightforward one for us. Yeah.
How about a participation?
Participation is part of a kind of an attitude mark that gets recorded on the transcript that we use for the Industry Training Authority. So that's a little different than the college transcript, but it is part of theirs.
And tell me about the attitude mark.
Oh, it covers everything from the way they deal with the practical projects. Safety in the shop is huge. Cleanup, tidiness, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, just looking at both of those separately for attendance, first of all, no, I don't have a mark for attendance. Attendance isn't required in the classes. Ideally, of course, I'd like people to show up, and I must say I've had the odd class where not too many have attended, but I don't assign a mark for attendance. They're mature learners, adult learners, it's their choice. I think what my responsibility is to make sure the class is run in such a way that it's worthwhile for them to be there. And to force them to be there, to me, is artificial. But as for participation, it depends on the course. For some courses, participation is really encouraged. I view that as part of enhancing the adult learning experience. They're more active by participating. And so if I want them to participate, then yes, very often I'll build in a mark to encourage it and to recognize their involvement. But it has to be clear as to how that participation mark is assigned. It can't just be something that's wide open. So I set some criteria. For example, attendance is going to be part of it there. Secondly, that they do meaningfully participate in the class. It could be in a class as a whole or in small groups, depending on the nature of the class activities, but that they are actively involved. And it doesn't mean to say that they have to be always speaking or garrulous or anything like that, but as long as they're meaningfully engaged. And then the other criterion that I'll often use is preparation, that they come to class prepared. And now I realize that sometimes it's hard to actually measure those things, but I probably err more on the side of the students. In fact, what I say to them is that if 5 marks is assigned for participation, you all have it now. So really all that you can now do is lose it. And you can lose it by not showing up, by not being prepared, and so on. And that, I find that works. I generally keep it relatively low, 5, max of 10%. Usually it's about 5%. I guess I would use it. Yeah.
What I've done in nursing, especially around participation, because that could mean so many different things, and who decides? And so I have an assignment that's worth 10% on participation. And they decide with me what the criteria will be, and then they have to, at the end of the semester, tell me how they did that. And it doesn't always, and attendance, I've never taken attendance. I have a real problem with that personally, because I think it's very much a power over, and it's a way to get students there. And I really believe we should look at ways we can motivate them and have them there because they want to be, not because we're the teacher, and we can take that power away from them. So participation, as long as they're involved in the criteria, and then they decide how they participated, because in nursing they have to do a lot of self-assessment as a registered nurse, and they have to start learning to assess their own behavior, and so that's kind of part of that process. So that's what I've done.
Yeah, like Molly, I guess I worry a bit about attendance and participation coming from a paradigm where the students are kind of seen as the enemy or someone that people that we have to kind of coerce or force or convince to behave a certain way. I understand the person who asked that question was not meaning that necessarily, but was worried, how do I get students to come to class, and how do I get them to participate? And I guess I try to look at other ways of accomplishing those things, so having the students really involved and having them we tend to teach now in English language development to outcomes, and we have the students actually do things where they are performing a task, so that requires them to participate. They have no choice. I think one of the key parts to this is also feedback loops, so that students are getting a lot of feedback on, like honest feedback on what they've done well and also what they need to work on. And that tends to encourage a lot of participation, I find.